Bichara Supply Chain, highlighting and showcasing solutions for the most complex challenges facing the industry in 21st century by our team of subject matter experts and mentors. Broadcasting every week, all year round, we will present the most up-to-date series of podcasts and webinars.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bichara Supply Chain. This is Nurhadi, your host, and I'm speaking now with Mike Mortson. He is the CEO and founder at the Supply Chain Game Changers. So this is a forum for sharing experiences and expertise in supply chains, business management, logistic distributions, and also chain leadership. And he is based in Canada. So today we're going to talk about the digital supply chain. Thanks for joining us and welcome to Bichara Supply Chain, Mike.
Thank you very much, Nahadi. It's great to be talking with you here today and to be talking with your audience as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so before we get in, can you please tell us a bit about your professional background and what do you do?
Sure. Thanks, Nahadi. I am currently the founder of a website called supplychaingamechanger.com. I've had the opportunity to have a career close to 40 years working in all aspects of business, supply chain, logistics, procurement, planning, management, manufacturing, operations, working in a variety of industries, different companies with people from all around the world. And I've had such a wonderful opportunity in my career to do all of these great things that I thought it would be wonderful to have a platform to share experiences and expertise in the area of supply chain, not just myself, but those of others as well. So a few years ago, I started supplychaingamechanger.com, set up that website and the blog and curating content, and that's what I've been doing for the last few years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mike. So talking about digital supply chain, how do you see the disruptive technologies with respect to supply chain? What's the major change that look like in the next 5 to 10 years from now?
Well, I think we are at a very, very exciting time in the arena of supply chain. It's something I like to call the digital supply chain, enabled by all of these disruptive technologies that we all hear about every day. You hear about blockchain, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, drones, advanced analytics, cloud computing, autonomous vehicles, big data, and more. All of those technologies are enabled by the digital platform we have, enabled by the Internet of Things. So we have electronic connectivity, end-to-end connectivity capabilities that we never had historically in supply chain, but now with that full complement of technologies, they all together form the basis for creating the digital supply chain of the future. I think this is a change that will be going on for years and perhaps decades to come, all enabled by digital technology.
Yeah. And then what are the biggest risks facing supply chain leaders with regards to this kind of digitization in supply chain?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was asking you, what are the biggest risks facing supply chain leaders with this kind of digitization?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of risks, a lot of challenges associated with implementing a digital supply chain. First of all, if you don't have a strategy to implement these technologies one way or other, you are not going to be participating in a digital supply chain. A lot of companies, in my experience and in my interactions with people today are still struggling with day-to-day problems, operational issues, and execution problems. And they're stuck in the muck and the mire of dealing with those day-to-day problems. They don't have a strategy to deal with that. Advancing technologies. If you don't have an organization that is bought into the need to make all of these kind of changes in the future, if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the skill set, if the costs are too high, if the return on investment is not sufficient for your organization, if there's a fear of failure, a lot of companies won't try to make change because they fear not being able to make change, or they just don't have the time. They could be consumed with all the day-to-day problems at their end. So there's a lot of risks, a lot of challenges. All these technologies are not completely mature as well. They don't all have the same kind of global standards, which would allow for seamless end-to-end implementation across the supply chain for any given company. So, there continues to be a lot of risks and challenges, but that's just the nature of the beast. Quite honestly, no change happens. It doesn't have some level of risk or challenge associated with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what skill mix is required to overcome the challenge in digital supply chain?
Well, this is part of what I think is very exciting for supply chain professionals. The skill mix that we're going to need. If you go back in time, supply chain, probably within a supply chain organization, or even as perceived outside an organization, was highly transactional. It was a highly transactional organization. It was focused on, manually placing purchase orders, making purchase, filing paperwork, working with lists with part numbers and SKUs, and doing all of that manually, and doing that all on a very transactional basis. The digital supply chain of the future requires a much different skill set than that kind of transactional history. You need people who can think strategically, who can think on a very big scale. You can implement any of these digital technologies, one at a time, here or there, on a small kind of basis. But you really need to have great supply chain visioning capability. On top of that, supply chain professionals in the future are going to have some kind of technical expertise. They don't have to be experts on all of these, but they're going to have a level of expertise because they're the ones that need to be able to design and architect what the digital supply chain of the future is going to look like. Well, they need IT professionals in order to implement programs and make all the back office changes to put this in place. It really has to be done under the umbrella of the expertise, the visioning, the architecture as designed by a supply chain leader. On top of that, what we're really talking about when you think about the Internet of Things and digital supply chain is full end-to-end electronic connectivity. What that means is supply chain leaders in the future have to have the skills to be able to manage holistically across the entire supply chain, end-to-end on a global basis, unlike ever before. Control towers will become more prevalent in managing this kind of organization. With tools like artificial intelligence, there'll be less time spent upon data assimilation and data interpretation, and more time spent on information management and the high-level decision-making based upon that information, which is provided by the digital supply chain network underneath it. On top of that, you're going to find a need to focus on really understanding data analytics, again, as opposed to data manipulation. People are going to have to be able to really focus on business process improvement, because you need to fundamentally redesign all of your business processes to support this digital transformation. And last but not least is change leadership or change management. all of this will impact virtually every business process and all jobs and responsibilities within an organization. And you really need to be adept at being able to manage change and taking people through that kind of transition and transformation. If you don't do that, everything else you have technology will not work because people will not be on board with what you're trying to do.
Okay, so this would be my last question today, Mike. So in conclusions, what exactly the value we can bring in with all this kind of digital supply chain?
Well, the value is really comes about because supply chain is at the core of all the change. Supply chain is the epicenter for all this change. It impacts virtually every function within any organization, but it all starts with the supply chain. So supply chain will have to play a much more strategic role in companies than perhaps they have ever done before. Certainly in small to mid-sized companies, not just large companies. And on top of that, because there will be, as you asked before, Nurhadi, about the risks and challenges associated with, there will be constraints on resources and skills and time and costs and all of those things. So it will not be sufficient for supply chain people to try and do all of this in-house by themselves anymore. There will be need to look to outsource more and more of these activities to people who are experts in their field in all areas of supply chain. It's something that I like to call supply chain as a service, or SCAAS. You know, the same concept as software as a service, or SaaS, right? People will not have the resources and capabilities and to be able to support implementing all these technologies on their own. So why not outsource some of that stuff to experts, whether it's in the field of procurement or manufacturing or operations or data analytics, any of that kind, and then all of that service is provided to you, which helps facilitate faster implementation, lower costs, it de-risks implementing a digital supply chain, and it provides a competitive advantage that companies without it will not have. So supply chain is at the core of this digital transformation. Connecting suppliers, connecting information, connecting people, connecting business processes, all starts and ends with supply chain.
Okay, so thanks for sharing on Bicara Supply Chain, Mike.
Thank you very much for your time, Nurhadi.
At Bicara Supply Chain, we are committed to driving global perspective to embrace technological adaptation in improving process efficiencies. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Bicara Supply Chain. And stay tuned for the latest updates. To learn more, visit our website www.bicharasupplychain.com. Thank you for listening to us. We look forward to seeing you at our next episode.